Welcome once again to the Big Barton Film Show on Barton FM, online and on digital, with your movie host Sudip Bhaduri. Thank you for joining me. Since the lockdown began, I've become a real film aficionado on all these Freeview channels, Talking Pictures, Sony Movies Action, and now Netflix, Amazon Prime, Apple and Disney Plus. It's a plethora of treasures because the cinemas are not showing the big movies, and I'm sure there are a lot more members joining across the world for these streaming platforms. One has to always look at the positives coming out of a lockdown as well. So, as is the usual mode, we are going back in time in my movie portal time machine to a golden movie year, and this year it's 1992. What was happening in your life? Well, for me, I took my 18-month-old son Tom for his very first trip abroad to the United States and Disney World, and he hasn't looked back at the age of 30. Now an established senior naval officer, he still speaks highly of his great theme park rides. He's a park ride aficionado. So in the news in 1992, Sarah Ferguson and Prince Andrew split. And everyone knows that Prince Andrew's been making the news these days for the wrong reasons. So what was he up to in 1992? In South Africa, F.W. de Klerk had a vote for change to end apartheid in a formal country vote and a creation of a power-sharing government. Here in the UK, Neil Kinnock resigned from the Labour Party after being leader for many years. The new Speaker of the House was Betty Boothroyd, the very first time a woman was elected as Speaker. She was Labour MP for West Bromwich West. She became one of the most popular speakers in modern times. A controversial book about Princess Di was published, written by Andrew Morton. And basically it was expressing her mental state in many ways and the factors behind these, including several attempts at suicide. Bill Clinton beat George Bush Sr. to become the 42nd President of the United States. The young politician from Arkansas, Little Rock to be exact, became the third youngest president after John F. Kennedy and Teddy Roosevelt. A blaze broke out at Windsor Castle, threatening millions of pounds of priceless art. £40 million for restoring these particular pieces of art and other parts of the castle. It took 5 years altogether. And the big sporting event of the year was the Barcelona Olympics, and one can recall the world-class achievements of our own Linford Christie in the 100 metres, and even more unexpected, Golden Girl Sally Gunnell in the 400 metres hurdles. At the cinema, Sharon Stone was at her sexy femme fatale best opposite Michael Douglas in Basic Instinct. Daniel Day-Lewis was setting ladies' hearts throbbing as Hawkeye in the Michael Mann epic, which was great, The Last of the Mohicans. Whoopi Goldberg was having a wail, or shall I say, a song of a time as a nun on the run in Sister Act. Russell Crowe made a thunderous debut as a skinhead in the disturbing Australian drama Romper Stomper. Tom Cruise did battle in the courts opposite Jack Nicholson in John Grisham's A Few Good Men. Robert Downey Jr. at the start of his illustrious career impressed the Academy with his portrayal of Charlie Chaplin. And Gary Oldman was frightening as Count Dracula in the Francis Ford Coppola version of Bram Stoker's famous mythical creature. Just missing out on my top three, Denzel Washington as the black civil rights leader Malcolm X, and Robin Williams, genius that he was, as the genie in Walt Disney's Aladdin. So my top three of 1992. Number 3, Reservoir Dogs, brilliantly made by Quentin Tarantino, whose reputation zoomed after this. An all-star cast of Harvey Keitel, Tim Roth, Michael Madsen, Steve Buscemi, Lawrence Tierney and Chris Penn. So a gang of jewel thieves brought together by an old-timer and his son, never met before. The heist goes awry, trust flies out the window. Is their informant. Tarantino has paid homage to the great gangster movies in the 30s and 40s, with the influence no doubt of Howard Hawks and John Huston. The climax is brutal, the torture scene unforgettable, the legacy untouchable. Number 2, complete opposite to Reservoir Dogs, Howard's End, made by James Ivory, based on the E.M. Forster classic made in 1910, starring Sir Anthony Hopkins, Vanessa Redgrave, Emma Thompson and Helena Bonham Carter. Redgrave plays Ruth Wilcox, dying of terminal cancer, and as she lies on her deathbed, she's left Howard's End, which is the home that she lives in, to a new friend and neighbour, Margaret, played by Thompson. Henry, that's Anthony Hopkins, destroys this particular informal letter, but didn't know who the recipient was, and falls for Margaret, which brings lots of complications. It's a classic novel of social stigmata and social distinction. And Emma Thompson got a deserved Oscar for Best Actress. But my top film of 1992 has to be Unforgiven, directed and starring Clint Eastwood, the man himself, arguably one of the greatest westerns made in the last century. Co-stars Morgan Freeman, Gene Hackman and Richard Harris. An elegiac western that undermines the conventions of the genre but delivers a brutal punch at the end. And Eastwood plays a retired gun for hire, William Mooney, now a pig farmer. He's lost his wife, he's raising pigs with his son, he's running short of money, and he's lured out of retirement by a young gunfighter to take on the local town's bosses, including a corrupt sheriff. The character of Mooney is clearly a mixture of Dirty Harry and The Man with No Name, clearly an influence by Sergio Leone and Don Siegel, Clint Eastwood's previous directors. It's another gem from that legend. My film of 1992 is Unforgiven.